canceled a vacation to care for my injured mom, but my wife went alone and acted as if nothing was wrong. Hey everyone, I'm really in a tough spot with my wife right now, and I could really use some advice or help because I'm feeling totally lost. I don't want my emotions to take over, so I'm here looking for objective opinions. Here's a bit of background. My wife, Susanna, 36, and I, 38, have been married for 2 years and together for 5. We were introduced by mutual friends, and in the beginning, I really loved how independent she was. I wanted that to stay the same after marriage, but I didn't expect her version of independence to be so different from mine. A couple of months ago, we started planning a much-needed vacation to California. We were both exhausted from work and really looking forward to it. But just a week before we were supposed to leave, my mom had a bit of an accident. She's in her 60s and has been living alone since my dad passed away. She got hit by a car while walking and ended up with a fractured ankle and sprained wrists. Her insurance took care of the medical stuff, but she still needed someone to help her out while she recovered. So naturally, I told Susanna maybe we should cancel the vacation so I could take care of my mom. My mom and I are super close, and she's never been a nightmare mother-in-law. She and Susanna actually had a great relationship. But Susanna was totally against canceling. She thought it was ridiculous to even suggest it because we'd been planning this trip for months, and she was desperate for a break. She suggested hiring a full-time nurse for my mom instead. While that was an option, it felt really insensitive to just take off on vacation right after my mom's accident. Personally, I didn't care about appearances, I just wanted to be there for my mom. I explained this to Susanna, but she insisted that she carve this break and pointed out that my mom's injuries were minor and manageable. Even if we hired a nurse, I'd still want to check in on my mom regularly, which I couldn't do if we left for 2 weeks. The argument escalated. Susanna called me selfish and a mama's boy for prioritizing my mom over her. I felt that was really unfair, considering all the sacrifices I'd made for her and her family in the past. We argued non-stop in the lead-up to our planned departure, and eventually, 2 days before we were supposed to leave, Susanna said she was going on the trip without me. She told me I could join her later if I wanted, but made it clear she thought I was being unreasonable. After she said that, I stopped talking to her because it seemed like her mind was made up. I was really hurt and ended up spending more time at my mom's place, venting to her about everything. My mom, being the understanding person she is, told me I was free to go on the trip and that she wouldn't mind, but I could tell she was upset that Susanna hadn't even visited her. On the day Susanna left, she didn't even say goodbye. I was heartbroken and didn't know what to do. After a few days of thinking, I decided to talk to a lawyer about getting a divorce. It felt like things had gone too far, and I didn't think I could ever look at her the same way again. My mom suggested waiting until Susanna came back to discuss things, but I didn't want to wait. Her lack of communication during the trip hurt me deeply. Susanna finally came back 2 days ago, and she seemed really happy without me. I was home since it was the weekend, and when she walked in, she ignored me completely and went straight to the bedroom. That was the final straw. I decided I couldn't wait any longer and needed to get this done. So here's how it went down. After some time, she finally came out of the room all freshened up. I handed her the divorce papers and explained that her recent behavior had really hurt me. It wasn't just what she did. It was also that she didn't seem the least bit sorry. I told her I made the tough decision to leave because I couldn't see how our marriage could work if she didn't care about my feelings at all. She looked completely shocked, speechless for a good few seconds. Then she started defending herself, saying she's always been independent, and it was unfair for me to expect her to be tied down. She tried to justify her actions, saying that in a marriage, we should respect each other's different wants and needs. She thought I was just having a tantrum because I couldn't respect what she wanted. But it wasn't about that. I had given it a lot of thought, especially since she hadn't bothered to speak to me even once while she was away. I couldn't justify her decisions, so I had to take this step. She could have just apologized or ignored the whole thing as she had been ignoring me for 2 weeks, but instead, she chose to keep arguing. We ended up in a nasty fight. She kept defending herself and making me seem like I was overreacting. I got so frustrated that I asked her to leave because I couldn't tolerate it anymore. She packed a few things and left, probably to a hotel. That fight made me even more certain that I wanted to end things. Even after everything that happened, she didn't think an apology was necessary. A couple of days later, she called me asking when she could come back because living in a hotel was getting expensive. I told her I'd rather she didn't come back since I was serious about the divorce. She tried to argue again, so I just hung up. She then texted to apologize, but it felt like she was only saying sorry because I felt bad, not because she actually thought she did something wrong. She mentioned her independence again and said she wouldn't sacrifice it for our marriage. I knew she was only apologizing to come back home, but I told her no. She then started sending voice notes, crying and calling repeatedly. She couldn't believe I was doing this to her and thought I was being egoistic. But honestly, I'm just protecting myself because she hurt me more in the past few days than anyone ever has. I can't let it happen again. So it's better if we stay apart for now. I know she doesn't have many other places to go since her parents don't live nearby and she doesn't have close friends here. But that's not my problem right now. When I was feeling awful, she didn't think it was her problem. So I'm just behaving the same way. Still, I feel a bit guilty because of all her crying voice notes, even though I know it's necessary for my mental health to keep her away right now. For some additional context, we had paid for everything for the vacation and split the cost, but canceling it wouldn't have caused significant losses. I talked to the airline, and we could get a refund minus cancellation fees. The hotel we booked was owned by a friend's relative, and he was willing to refund us despite the late cancellation. I told Susanna all this before suggesting we cancel because I didn't want her to worry about the money. But she didn't even bring it up, so I knew it wasn't about the money. I had also made some sacrifices for her family, like missing my cousin's wedding, who I was really close to because her dad had surgery. I didn't think twice about going with her because her family has always treated me well. So, if I could skip my cousin's wedding for her dad's surgery, I didn't think it was too much to ask her to cancel our vacation. So here's the deal. We were supposed to go on vacation, but I had to put a pin in those plans because my mom, who's pretty old, got into an accident. I mean, she's always been my top priority. I never saw it as a big deal or anything heroic, just felt like my duty. But apparently, Susanna doesn't see it that way. She thinks it's totally unfair. And here's the kicker, she only, apologized when she realized staying in a hotel would cost a ton of money. Sad, right? Update 1. The comments here were all over the place. Some folks even called me a mama's boy, just like Susanna. Seriously? If caring about your parents is a bad thing, some people need to reevaluate themselves. I mean, it's not like my mom's been a nightmare mother-in-law to Susanna or anything. They used to get along great. My mom always treated her like her own daughter, so I thought we'd both want to be there for her. Sure, the accident wasn't life-threatening, but it really shook her up. She's in her late 60s, so even minor stuff can take ages to heal. We did get a full-time nurse, but for the 2 weeks Susanna was away, I was visiting my mom every other day after work. It wasn't just for her, it was for me too. The thought of going back to an empty house without Susanna was just too much. Even then, my mom never said a bad word about Susanna. She kept telling me to see things from Susanna's perspective and try to talk to her. So yeah, my mom's clearly not the villain here, no matter how much some people want to paint her that way. While my mom was urging us to patch things up, Susanna didn't bother reaching out to either of us. In her mind, my mom was the reason we were fighting, which is just ridiculous. I mean, all I wanted was to cancel or postpone a vacation to be there for someone who needed me. Anyone in my shoes would probably feel the same. So, yeah, I've decided to go through with the divorce. Susanna's behavior has been pretty hurtful, and I can't put up with that kind of disrespect, not to me, and definitely not to my family. I've spoken to my mom about it, and she's got mixed feelings. She's thankful that I value her so much, but she's also upset about all the drama with Susanna, which was never her intention. She wanted to be a good mother-in-law, unlike her own experience, but feels like she failed. I had to reassure her that it's not her fault. It's all on Susanna. I honestly think Susanna would have reacted he's same way even if it was me who got hurt. There's been a pattern of selfish behavior that I didn't really notice until now. For instance, I skipped my cousin's wedding to support her when her dad was in surgery. But when I wanted her to visit my cousin with me, just to give her the wedding gifts in person, she refused because she thought it wasn't necessary since my cousin was cool with us missing the wedding. And then there was this time I mentioned quitting my job to start a business, but, well, that's another story. So, there you have it. I'm done putting up with this one-sided relationship. I've got to look out for myself, too. So I decided to speak up, and man, she got really mad at my suggestion. Not only that, but she also gave me the cold shoulder and acted super distant for the next few days. I eventually told her it was just an idea I was tossing around, and I hadn't made any decisions yet. But from her reaction, it was pretty clear she thought quitting my job was a terrible idea. I decided to respect her feelings, even though she could have been nicer about it. She acted like I had committed some huge sin just by suggesting it. She explained that she's been working really hard too, and the thought of me quitting my job and starting something new with all its risks didn't sit well with her. She wanted us to save money for our future and retire early, so I put off starting my business. But then a couple of weeks later, she started talking about wanting a vacation because she needed a break from work. When I reminded her that she had said we shouldn't spend too much money, she went on and on about how this was different. Looking back, it feels like I'm always the one making sacrifices for our marriage. She always makes demands and gets away with it. And when she doesn't get her way, she somehow makes me feel guilty. But I can't keep living like this, so I think I'm making the right call by getting divorced. She keeps texting and sending voice notes. But I haven't blocked her, just muted the notifications so I'm not tempted to read them. I'm still pretty vulnerable, and I know it would be easy for her to manipulate me, so I don't even want to see her right now. She has a couple of weeks to respond to the divorce petition, so we'll see where that goes. Update 2. So Susanna finally responded to my petition today, almost 3 weeks since my last update. She's not contesting the divorce, which isn't surprising since she hasn't texted me in 2 weeks. However, she has a lot of demands, which I wasn't expecting because she always claimed to be very independent. First, she's demanding a ridiculous settlement amount and alimony, which makes no sense since we have similar incomes. She's also demanding that we sell the house and split the money, even though the house belongs to me. It used to be my uncle's, and he left it to me in his will. She has no claim on it, and it really pissed me off because she knows this. There are other demands, but these are the ones that annoy me the most. I wanted to contact her and ask what she was thinking, but my lawyer advised against it, saying it would give her leverage. Most of my friends are on my side, and my mom is disappointed by how things turned out with Susanna. Honestly, I feel the same way. I never thought she was capable of being so greedy. I don't want to use the term, but she's acting like a gold digger. It's not fair for her to demand so much when I never treated her badly. I wish we could end the marriage without it getting ugly, but it looks like, well, have to fight it out in mediation. I just hope we can come to terms that are fair for both of us. Update 3. Hey, I've been super busy the past couple of months, which is why there haven't been any updates. But I finally have some free time, so here's the latest. The divorce proceedings are still ongoing, but things are looking good for me. I've managed to get Susanna to agree to most of my terms, except for the house. But honestly, I'm not worried about that. The house belongs to me, and I'll decide what happens with it. I think it'll be resolved by the next session. For now, I'm just celebrating the fact that this will all be over soon. My mom is also doing a lot better. She can move around now, and I have a physiotherapist working with her every weekend to help her get back on her feet. Last month, I also quit my job and will be starting my new business in a couple of weeks. It was in the works for a while because I needed something to focus on during the initial stages of my divorce. I was pretty torn up about everything, so I started working on my business model and talked to a couple of friends who are interested in joining me. When we came on board as partners, we also got our family members to invest, and before long, we'll be up and running. I'm super excited about it because I feel it's the perfect time for a fresh start. Susanna and I haven't spoken in person since the mediation started. We've only communicated through our lawyers. Honestly, I'm perfectly fine with it. She's tried reaching out several times, but at this point, I'm just not interested. Whether what happened in the past was right or wrong doesn't even matter to me anymore. I just want to move on with my life. Now, I've got a business in the pipeline. My family's got my back, and my friends are there for me. That's really all anyone needs to be happy in life, right? Sure, I wish things could have worked out with Susanna because I really did love her. I guess a part of me still does. But love alone isn't enough to make a marriage work. It takes effort and sacrifice from both sides, and it can't be a one-way street. I've made my peace with it all. And from now on, I'm just going to focus on the future and not dwell on the past anymore.